Hello, everybody, and welcome to the October 3rd, 2023 iteration of the Kubernetes SIG-Windows community meeting. As always, these meetings are recorded and uploaded to YouTube, so be sure to adhere to the CNCF Code of Conduct. For anybody that's new, that pretty much boils down to just be nice to everybody. I think we don't have too long of an agenda, but enhancements freezes this week, so I imagine we'll spend some time talking about how all of those are going. Yep. So yeah, first announcement is enhancement freezes this week. I think it's in 2 days, and depending on your time zone, it's like October 5th or October 6th. And I think, yeah, we can talk about that later if we need to. Does anybody else have any announcements for this meeting? Okay. At this point, we usually give some space if there's anybody who's new to the call who wants to introduce themselves. I think I've seen pretty much everybody on the call, but if anybody wants to say hi or ask any questions, feel free to go ahead.
Sure. Super briefly, my name is Benjamin Berman. I'm a developer at Mana. I use Kubernetes SIG-Windows and often answer questions about Kubernetes and make some contributions here and there. And I'll be around to answer questions about Calico or deploying EKS and scripting automation.
I know I've seen you on Slack and stuff. I didn't realize that you hadn't been here before, but yeah, welcome. Yeah, if you've I guess if there's anybody else, we can also pause too. But okay, yeah, if you're here, let's do a quick check of the KEPs. I know since Cortana and Fabian are here too, and then after that we can talk about some of the Calico stuff. I think that the two big KEPs that were, one of the KEPs that we're tracking is the image pull per runtime class. I think that there's been some activity on that one. Do you have any updates, Cortana? I think I think I gave some more feedback yesterday, and I didn't have a chance to double check that everything was added again. But do you have any comments?
No, I addressed your review comments yesterday evening, and then I think just Peter looks good to me there. But hopefully we can have this in by 6th.
Yeah, I didn't check. Did all of the PRR requirements for alpha get checked in? I don't know if the PRR folks have started to review, but they're gonna expect that all to be done. So it's graduation criteria.
Okay, I had pinged on the Slack group for review. Let me just let's see what's up there.
Yeah, I took a look again today morning, Kirtana, and I feel that the PRR people might pull some things up because there's a bunch of stuff that they expect to be answered that's not been answered.
From like in the KEP, you mean?
Yeah, in the KEP. So those things need to be answered, especially things like feature gates. There are questions about feature gates that you've just kept it blank, right? Okay. If we don't answer that, the PRR folks will reject it.
Okay, I added it to the KEP, added it to the KEP.yaml file, but I think I missed the README.
So just do a sweep of the README. There is like, if there are things that you don't need to, like that doesn't apply to you, just call out that, okay, this doesn't apply.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they'll just like reject it based on that, right? And we don't want that. Okay. And even alpha, beta, and graduation to GA, even if we don't know the versions, do your best guess and put a version out there.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think we'll need to answer everything under PRR unless I think they explicitly set, some of them say like these sections are only applicable for features graduating to beta or to stable. For these, like a lot of the node changes kind of follow a similar pattern where usually things get implemented with everything off by default, especially for adding new CRI fields. So we can find another kep and probably a lot of cut and paste for that. Because usually when the feature is in alpha, nothing changes with the kubelet, and then when the feature flag is set, we start adding or changing some of the CRI fields. And so for the initial like the PR review readiness, a lot of it is, you know, nothing, no default changes happen, and there's also not a lot of like, there's no new traffic to the API server and all of that. So
And what's the like, when do we transition to beta, and after like public review, I guess? What is
whenever the graduation criteria from alpha to beta are satisfied, pretty much. I mean, it can be as if it can be as soon as like the next Kubernetes release, assuming that all of the, you know, requirements are met. For this one, we may have to wait until both cryo and containerd supported, and it's available in a version that's not just in the pre-release. That's usually what we've done in the past for CRI changes that need container runtime changes as well. And that's just to make sure that when it does get enabled, that people are running like actual released bits instead of just stuff that's built from master.
Okay, all right. Let me just like go through this real quick, and I'll update it.
Yeah, I think from my last go around, anything that's that needs to be removed, just I think it's safer to remove it rather than leaving that commented sections in there. It's just safer to always remove Kirtana. Otherwise, somebody will like, you know, will comment, and then it's just another go around for you. So
Yeah,
if you find it's not applicable, just remove it. I think as long as the end-to-end test passes, I think you should be fine.
okay, yeah, I was just seeing other examples in like the SIG node kep, and they had left it as is for like a lot of them. So
Yeah, you know, it's so variable. It just depends upon who's going to look at it.
Yeah.
okay, I'll go through it again and then fill in whatever is applicable and get rid.
Okay, yeah, and like anything, anything that's asking like you to check the box or something, we should also check the box and fill this out. I think there's examples here on how to do this, but I think somebody will want this test coverage filled.
What test coverage does it talk about? Like none of the changes are in yet, right?
What they want to see for this question is for any of the components that we're changing, what's the existing test coverage? And I think the motivation behind that is to kind of call out to reviewers. I think the kubelet has a pretty good both unit integration and EDE test coverage, but the motivation was if there's like old parts of the Kubernetes code base that do not have a lot of like that don't have test coverage, like I can't even think of anything, but then you like sometimes the kep authors may be asked to make sure that there is adequate test coverage before they start making changes to it to help ensure stability. I haven't seen that in Node because there is pretty good test coverage, and the reviewers are pretty good about checking for that in like the implementation PRs.
Okay.
Yeah, and there's also something about there's end-to-end tests, there's unit tests, and there's I think integration tests. And integration tests are where you can do a bunch of things locally, but it requires I think like a local Kube API server, local something to be running local. But I know that there are some issues with the kubelet to have it running locally is what I remember.
Yeah, I don't, whenever I've done kubelet changes, I usually do unit tests and then EDE tests. I
Correct.
think that there's a lot of setup that could be required for that. And it's also kind of very environmentally specific.
Yeah, so you can even just mention that integration tests are not possible and give a reason why those are not possible.
Okay.
I think there are questions about all this. So as long as you answer the questions, and just ping us on Slack if you're running into trouble answering some of these questions, and we'll try and help you out.
Okay, sure. Yeah. Thanks, Arun.
Yeah, and then I see that, yeah, the graduation requirements were there. So I think just the PRR review and the PRR review, like the pool of the PRR reviewers they usually try and align it so that it's somebody who's not in one of the participating SIGs to review it, also just to kind of make sure that they're not biased by any of the work in there too. So it's going to be like those people are probably, they're also busy reviewing lots of other KEPs, so it'd be good to get this in first. So when somebody does take a first pass at this, they're not going to just kind of like ignore or just immediately say this doesn't have the PRR filled out.
Okay. Do you know, I could CC of the cap remote review once I update on the missing feed?
I'm sorry, what was that? My speakers are kind of soft.
No. Do you know someone else I could CC, like out of like the SIG node, or all of them on the CC that I added are mostly whom I discussed this kept with previously?
The PRR reviewers get assigned by the release team.
Okay.
And we do have a PRR reviewer. If you go back to the commit, it's that first YAML where they would have put the name down.
Did you add that name, Cortana, or did somebody get that assigned? So there is a PRR reviewer assigned. I'm just double checking in the.
So someone on the GitHub issue that I'd opened, I think she was from the release team, and she gave me a link to follow, and that link said you can just pick any one of the 4. So I just picked.
Okay. I'm trying to see here.
Yeah, Sanchita is the one who shared the link.
Is which field is PRR assignee? Okay, so I think you probably want to check. Did they say pick anyone? Sometimes. Okay.
So the last README or one of those like links there for the PRR process, the 4th checkbox from the top. So that had like you can pick one of the reviewers and then you have to ping the Slack group.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Normally, or at least in the past, the PRR team would kind of assign them the reviews as a team. But yeah, okay, let's follow that. And after there's some updates, you feel free to ping us in SIG-Windows. We'll take a look and prioritize that, and then ping the PRR group. And I'd say in that order.
And Mark, who would be the approver for this? Because the approver is still TBD, right?
It's somebody from SIG node, I'm guessing. We should ask Mernal maybe, since he's not listed as a reviewer.
I can ask him.
Okay. I can try and ask him too. Is he commented, or is he aware of this issue?
I sent him a link yesterday.
Okay. Yeah, I think Mernal should be sufficient. But yeah. Okay. Any other comments on this?
No, so I'll just work on the rest of it and then submit an iteration after the call.
Okay. Sounds good.
Justin, it might help if you attend a SIG node call, which is right after this, and you could maybe ask folks there about getting approval also.
Yeah, I'm going to join the SIG node call too. If you want to join, I can send you a link after this meeting.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Emily.
I think we talked about this maybe last week, but the vertical pod auto scaling. I think I see Fabian on the call now. What's the status with that? Are we still having some issues with the Windows, the test passes?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
There are still the same issues with the tests. I'm not sure exactly what's the problem. They don't seem to work properly. I mean, I updated the files to create different security for Windows and for Linux, but apparently the nodes still are acting like they're on Linux, even though they're on Windows. At least this is what the logs are telling me, which is pretty weird. I tested it locally and it hadn't had this problem, but for those on there, it seems like their Linux config on a Windows pod, which is pretty weird.
Okay, so we're pretty sure that at least right now this is just an issue with the test configuration. You did say that you had it working, or like looks like the tests are working locally.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not entirely sure what's the actual problem with at least these tests, but
yeah, Fabian. So the other thing, right, like there's a bit of a difference with the test working locally and with it working. If your cluster is running like on your laptop itself, like you're doing up cluster or something.
yeah, it's running locally on my laptop.
Yeah, so you have to treat anytime you're running test locally, you have to treat it the same way it's kind of running in CI. In CI, you'll have the test running against a cluster, but the test is in a separate pod. So it's like you can't assume that you'll have local access to anything. You always need to be on the cluster somehow and confirm things through that. So as long as you're not making any assumptions that, like, so say for example, you're going to stat a file. If you do stat a file, you have to assume that you have to be somehow on the node itself. Because otherwise, if you stat the file, it might work locally for you because everything is on the same system. But when you run it in CI, it's going to behave a little differently. The stat will work on the test pod and it won't be running on the node itself. So as long as I don't know the exact issue you're running into, so that's where, but that is something to keep in mind is what I wanted to call out, because I saw that similar problem happening in the node log viewer end-to-end test. So I'm just wanting to make sure that is not happening here.
It might be the same problem. I mean, what I found as a solution was to take the framework, not OS distro, and compare that with Windows and create a new config for Windows part and another one for the Linux part. Yet, unfortunately, it still creates in the test a Linux part. I can send the link in the chat if you want to see exactly where.
Yeah, I think we'll probably need to know. Well, we'll do a review of that soon and just double check that everything is fine. We could also probably look at this either async or focus on this next meeting too, since that'll be post code freeze if people want. I think we have more time since it's we're not working on a kept for that.
Not post code freeze, right, Mark?
Not post code freeze. Post enhancement freeze though. Yeah. So and I think the other thing to make sure is the Node OS distro. This is expected to come in via command line arguments against the EDE test argument, or the EDE test binary. This one doesn't check, like, this doesn't actually check the nodes in the cluster. So we'll need to make sure that that gets set when you set up the EDE test binary. Where is it? So like when we run this script here, which sets up a cluster and then does the runs the tests, we actually pass Node OS distro into Windows. So, yeah, we just need to make sure that that's also set. Otherwise, it may not be triggering, or may not following this if statement.
Yeah, that looks like it might be it, right?
Could be. That's, yeah, simple.
Yeah, that's the common thing, right? Because sometimes you either have an E2E test that doesn't check that, or you have the thing that calls the test doesn't set that, right?
Yeah, yeah, and both need to be true.
Yeah.
I think we can get back to this. Do we want to give talk about some of the Calico stuff, or Ben, did you have anything you wanted to discuss?
No, I'm just available to
Oh, okay.
help you guys solve
Oh,
problems.
I was bugging Ben about EKS Windows to try to get him to do my job for me. And he was like, yeah, I'll show up and do stuff for us. So, but that we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
But we meet every Tuesday, Ben. So
Mhm.
I really appreciate you helping
Sure.
us, giving us that hint. We got some of the basic EKS Terraform stuff fixed with that.
Awesome. Did anybody have anything else they wanted to discuss today?
I can go for a second unless there's something Calico related. I don't know. I actually filed a Calico issue, so I related to host process containers recently, and I think they fixed it, and I just saw the update. I don't know if that's what you were going to talk about. No. You
Me?
said something. You said something about Calico.
No, I just asked if anybody wanted to, like, had anything to discuss about Calico. I didn't have anything specific.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
You just randomly said Calico for no reason, and I have okay, cool. So I do because there's a recent. I think there's a fix to a Calico bug that I filed. I'll see if I can pull up the link to it. Hold on. And then I guess the only other thing is the only other thing I have is the operating as stuff. We have some basic Terraform patches that we put in, but we don't have any major stuff yet because we don't have EKS Windows nodes up yet. Yeah, so 79996, issue 7996. I can try to share my screen. Hold on.
Okay, let me stop my share.
Okay. Here we go. Okay. Cool. So looks like this just got fixed. So I don't know. Does anybody run Calico and host process containers on Windows?
That's me.
You do? Okay. Yeah. So
We do too
have
for all the ED tests and CapZ.
you already, so have you already ever seen a network unavailable false confusion thing in Calico?
The like transiently, right?
Well, mine was permanent. But it was related, I think.
I'm quickly reading. What is the like actual consequence of that? Like, what's
So
the net effect of network unavailable false in the, you mean in the like node status, node readiness flags?
so it's really weird. And so then I filed another issue about that, and that turned into a book. So
Are you asking how do I
You shouldn't have asked
correctly
that.
run Calico host process containers?
so so that's another issue of what happens
Gotcha.
when you have network available false, because it turns out that the consequence of that is it's very complicated, because it I won't even get into it because it's so crazy, but so a node will sit there. It took me like 2 days to figure this out, to track this down, and I still don't fully understand it. But a node that is tainted with a node that does not have a network unavailable taint, a condition, will not have any problems. A node with a network unavailable false true condition will not have things scheduled to it. And I think it's because there's a condition, and the condition is labeled if there's a taint, and the taint can be placed on things, and some things, different people use the taint for different things. And I think Calico is one of the CNI providers that actually uses that taint. And they actually set that taint specifically because Google really cares about that taint toleration. But
Okay, then this is a regression. I think this was added relatively new, like in specifically 3.26.
what
The taint, because it doesn't interact with this. My nodes never interact. I don't have this taint.
Well, I
run
think
the older one.
yeah, and I'm not sure whether it's like the condition is what triggers it, but the thing I was seeing was that I couldn't run E2E tests because this toleration wouldn't go away, and it wasn't obvious to me who was setting it. And then I found out that Calico toggles it, and then I wound up asking, and then I wound up looking, and then it turned out that there is this bug in the host process Calico pods where in certain situations you don't actually get this client created properly.
That
And if
was my bug report. That
Oh,
was my fix. I wrote.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, okay.
I ticketed that one
Oh, okay. You beat me to it. Okay.
a while ago.
Okay.
And to
Yeah. I don't know where, but somewhere. I'm sure you probably reported it before me. Okay.
So
Cool.
so I think you're getting a regression between 3.25 and 3.26, which is what you're running, that messes with these taints that don't do anything.
Okay.
Which is unfortunate. And in that ticket where he's talking about like network backend, the ticket you wrote, network backend none. And so you did confirm your configuration is good, because most of my experience with these problems has been that there are like 9 different ways to configure Calico.
Yeah, you don't have a kube config set up correctly or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so that was fixed. Anyways, I haven't tested this yet, but evidently that's fixed, so that's good news. But then the other question I have for you, Ben, is so you don't use EKS Terraform?
I use EKS CTL, and I evaluated the EKS Terraform once.
You did? Okay. All right. So yeah, because we have a Terraform recipe up, but I don't really know the right way to add a Terraform Windows node group. And I could like Google stuff and guess and like copy paste Terraform YAML, but I figured maybe you might be able to help me with that.
Yes, I think the only thing that you have to do, it's actually simpler, is than you might imagine. There are the 2 kinds of node groups. One's a managed node group and one's a quote unquote node group. and you can only create Windows node groups. You can't create a Windows managed node group, and then you specify a Windows AMI, and you're done. So it'll have like an AMI family or similar argument, as long as that's set to Windows Server 2022, and then one of their AMI names. It's like core container or
Okay.
whatever. You're done. It's in Windows.
Okay, cool. All right. And then yeah, go on.
You will, everything in AWS nowadays correctly has the node selector node windows in it.
Mhm.
But it's possible if you get like a manifest for like a CNI, it probably won't, which will be like the thing that breaks.
Oh yeah,
So-
we can fix that part. Yeah, we know how to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. If you have a link to the particular module you would use for the EKS Windows node group,
Yeah.
let me know.
Sure.
That's because sometimes I try like the wrong module and then I'm confused. I don't know how people guess that, but yeah.
How there's a lot of pain in here. It's
Yeah.
a painful journey.
But yeah. So yeah, Arnaud, I'm doing this with Arnaud. So yeah.
Okay.
Thanks though. I know I can pin you now, so this is great. That's all I really got, Mark. That's all I got. Mark dropped. Everybody's off.
Yeah.
Everybody else.
Well, and my experience has been pretty good. I don't really bother deploying Calico in EKS, which I don't know if you plan to do or what that specifically needs to test, because the
yeah. The built-in CNI is good enough for us because we are building a development environment for our drop-in replacement for the kube proxy, the Windows service proxy. And so this is kind of like a long-term project that we're doing. And so we're not worried about a production Windows cluster. We're just worried about building Terraform stuff that we can use to automate things so people can develop some stuff.
Okay.
Cool.
I'll be available on the Slack. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll ping you once we try to do this tomorrow, but I'll start a thread in Slack, a new thread, and I'll say, hey, can you suggest an EKS module that we might use? And we can go from there. I really appreciate it, Ben.
Sure. Of course. All right. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye.
All right. All right. See you everybody, unless anybody has anything else.
Okay.